Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super Dandori Bros Podcast, Episode 2. We are your hosts, Leighton and Ryan. Today, we are going to be discussing what we think the first year of the Switch 2 will look like. So I'm going to hit that off to you, Ryan. What do you?
All right.
What's your first prediction for the Switch 2 year one?
So I think the obvious thing is that this is going to be Mario's 40th anniversary. So I think, pretty much with every Nintendo console, you get a new 3D Mario fairly early on. We got Mario Odyssey fairly early on in Switch 1. I think that's obviously, we're definitely getting that. There are rumors that it's an open world Mario game. I could totally see that being the case. I mean, you saw how successful Breath of the Wild was. It completely changed the Zelda formula, and I believe it's the best-selling Zelda game to date. And it would not surprise me if they give Mario a similar treatment. In some ways, you sort of see a trend toward that. You look at Mario Odyssey, and compared to previous Mario games, especially like the Mario Galaxy games, which were fairly linear and contained, the kingdoms were a little bit more open. Getting a moon didn't instantly end the level, and you could just, keep going. And then if you look at Mario 3D World Bowser's Fury, specifically the new content that was added, that was much more open world Mario like. So I actually think a Mario open world game is at least fairly likely. And what exactly, what changes come with that, I don't know. I mean, you sort of had the cap possession mechanic in Mario Odyssey, which I don't think anyone saw coming. So what it could be this time is anyone's guess. Could there be RPG elements? Could, currency make a comeback but be used in a sort of a different way? I'm not really sure. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's so tricky trying to predict Nintendo because, they always come out of left field. And, if I were to just throw out a guess and with nothing to base it on, being Mario's 40th anniversary and Nintendo being a little bit more nostalgic lately with their Nintendo Museum and with Mario Kart, the new Mario Kart looking like it's kind of harkening back to older times. It could be a Mario that is somewhat like a time traveling Mario or like a generational Mario, not kind of like how Sonic did Sonic Generations, but something a little bit more Nintendo Mario, obviously like with their own spin on it. It'd be kind of interesting if you kind of revisited a lot of locales from previous Mario games, both 2D and 3D. And I don't know. I mean, that could be like a really fun mechanic. But obviously, if the whole gimmick is just time travel, that might be a little difficult. That would be kind of cool if it also retreaded some of the old mechanics too, where you went back and you had Flood again, but now with, updated graphics and controls. And then you had Mario Galaxy where you had the Luma. I don't know, but obviously there's challenges there. The other idea was just, like you said, open world, but I'd be curious to know how they'd pull it off because I think obviously it's not going to be just Breath of the Wild. It's going to be its own unique spin on it in a way that doesn't feel like you're spending a long time trying to get from level to level. What makes Mario games fun is not traversing giant open landscapes. It's all the kind of acrobatics you do along the way. The level, the enemies, the puzzles you solve. I was thinking in Mario Odyssey, probably one of the biggest levels is the I don't remember what the level's called. It's that frozen desert level.
Yeah.
And that one's pretty big. So I can imagine them doing like stuff like that where the levels are just maybe super big and somewhat interconnected, or I don't know. I could see though, like if they went too open world though, it could turn some people off unless they came up with some really great ways to navigate faster, or they came up with some ways to just make the traveling more fun and interesting. So, but yeah, there's definitely a 3D Mario game. I mean, I just cannot, for the life of me, like they haven't made a 3D Mario game since Odyssey, and that was back in 2017. And it was a system seller then. It'll be a system seller now. I think Nintendo, in a way, is almost trying to recreate the success of the Switch 1. The only difference being is I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be more like their Zelda, and then they're going to have their Mario Kart. They're going to have their um, Mario, just regular Mario. They may even have a Splatoon because those are all games that are very, very key to their system taking off. So,
Absolutely. And it's funny because I was watching a video that was sort of just looking at the new Mario Kart, and it was sort of it was one of Arlo's videos, and he was looking at the sort of the sides of the racetrack and how like it's almost designed as if like hypothetically a character could walk around there. And I had this crazy thought, there's no way that this is actually the case, but I think it was a fun thing to think about. Like, what if the 3D Mario and the Mario Kart are the same game? You know what I mean? And the thing with Mario 3D Mario games, like truly, is that they make traversal fun. They make moving around the world fun in a way that Breath of the Wild does not. Breath of the Wild like does have an exploration, obviously it's very heavy exploration element, but like running around and climbing isn't in and of itself fun. The combat is fun. Collecting items is fun, but not necessarily traversal. Whereas you look at like Mario Odyssey, and specifically the traversal mechanics are like above and beyond much better than any other 3D Mario game. Like Mario Galaxy is sort of similar, obviously, of the gravity mechanics, which you use for traversal. Mario Sunshine, it was pretty much all about traversal / being a power wash simulator of its time, which now that I think about it, a Mario Sunshine themed power wash simulator would be pretty. It would not be on my bingo card, but it would be pretty funny. But at the same time, like I don't think it would be out of the question, hypothetically, if you were to have a Mario like open world game. Like maybe it isn't the same game as Mario Kart, but why couldn't he have a cart that he could use to travel around? If you wanted to make traversal fun, like hypothetically, they could do that. Nintendo can do anything that they want. I mean, that's very clearly demonstrated. And so I think that you do have a lot of options that people haven't really considered. That it isn't just like moving around on foot. Like Mario does all kinds of wacky things.
yeah, I mean, that's 100% true. He's written all kinds of stuff in all the different Mario games, whether it be on water, on land, or in the air. So for sure, like I don't know, yeah, Nintendo will come up with something just wacky and weird and different too that we never even thought about. Some new concept, some new character, some new whatever it is. I think we don't know what to expect, but I know it's going to push the system to its limits. It's going to, Mario Odyssey still looks phenomenal to this day, and that came out in the first year of the Switch. So I think that whatever they come out with is going to just blow our minds. It's going to run phenomenally. It's going to, handle, perform. It's just going to be super fun. But I do suspect that's going to be a Christmas launch, like kind of like October, November timeline. I think Odyssey came out in October 2017, and so this would be probably around the same timeline, be a holiday sell. With Mario Kart being closer to launch, whether it be at launch or see, I'm torn. I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this because I need to see a lot of people saying, "Oh, because it was in that video, it means it's a launch title." But I'm like, okay, so there's two ways of looking at it, and maybe because we're both Prime Metroid fans, I'm hopeful that Prime 4 is the launch title. I think if they launch Prime and Mario Kart at the same time, Prime is just destined to fail.
Yeah.
But if Prime is the launch title and then Mario Kart comes out the following month, Prime has at least a bit of time to be like, attached to all the first systems sold for the first month. Because if you look at the Switch 1, that's what they did. They had Breath of the Wild as their launch title, not Mario Kart, even though they could have. They could have made Mario Kart. Because Mario Kart came out the next month. They made Zelda the big launch title. And I think that helped it sell units because up until that point, the best-selling Zelda game was Twilight Princess at like 9 million units. And Breath of the Wild has sold now 34 million units. So
that's wild.
You can't, I mean, obviously the game itself is why it sold so well, but you can't tell me that being a launch title didn't hurt or didn't help. I mean, so I think that if they want to get Prime some attention, make it a launch title, showcase the Switch with the mouse controls, with updated graphics and the, 4K resolution or whatever they can pump out on this thing, be it just a showpiece of a thing, because the average consumer is not even going to know it's available when it launches. So by the time it hits mainstream and all the news outlets are talking about it, then Mario Kart can launch, and then people can buy their Mario Kart, and they'll keep systems selling because they're talking about keeping production high this time. They're talking trying to sell 20 million units. I think the system's been in production since September of last year, and they're probably going to launch in summer, so they're going to have like 9 months of runway time to get this thing produced. So I think they're going to have an insane number of units. I think they're planning on selling out everything they can this year
Probably.
for
So
2025. Yeah.
I think if you had asked me like a few days ago what I thought like the launch lineup, I probably would have given you like a very different answer. I mean, in some ways it is still very similar, but I think that because we didn't really know when the Switch was going to launch. There was some thought that maybe it would be April, maybe it would be May. But, I think that now that we have the April Direct and the live demonstrations stretching out to June, I think that, the most likely answer is that this thing launches in June. That essentially cuts 2 months off of the hypothetical window that we had for games to come out before the Christmas season. I think, pretty hard stop. The 3D Mario is going to be in the November slot. Mario likes to be in the November slot a lot. It makes a lot of sense for the holiday season. I don't think you put Mario Kart there. I think you put the 3D Mario there. So, again, like you said, we're both Metroid fans. I want Prime 4 to do well, and I think it is poised to do. It could do very well. I think that Nintendo has an opportunity to let it have its own time in the sun and do well, and like you said, be the only thing on the system at the time. And I think that would at least set it up for success as best as you possibly can. Is that what they're going to do? I don't know. They have a track record of, at the end of a system's life, letting a Metroid game essentially just die on the vine of the previous system after they've launched it, which is Samus Returns, unfortunately. Samus Returns is a great game. It shouldn't have been left on the 3DS. Unfortunately, it was. And the sales suffered for it. Now, granted, not the same situation because we have confirmed backwards compatibility with Switch 2. So it's not the same situation. However, at the same time, I think that because we don't understand the entire picture as to whether or not games that come out within that launch window of Switch 1, Switch 2, whether or not they're going to be cross-gen in the same way that Breath of the Wild was, where you had a Wii U version and a Switch version, whether or not it's just going to essentially be one game cart and it just happens to perform better on Switch 2. Maybe only games in that window actually have that ability. Maybe none of them do. Maybe we literally just get Switch 1. I kind of doubt it. I think that there probably will be an upgraded version for Switch 2 in some capacity. Whether or not it's like a free upgrade, I kind of doubt that. I think it gets its own version. Which I think we'll learn about at a later date. So I think that there's still some outstanding questions before you that prevent you from being able to give like a really solid answer. My hope is Metroid Prime 4 is the launch title. It gets 1-2 months by itself, probably just one. And then we get Mario Kart. I think Mario Kart comes fairly early, and I think it gets spaced out a decent amount from the 3D Mario, not because it needs it, but because Mario Kart is just such a system seller that if their plan is to be as aggressive as possible in selling, that they just want Mario Kart on there as soon as possible. And especially because since, you have to produce these consoles and you have to store them somewhere, like they have storage space for what is essentially going to be like a holiday rush. And presumably they have that rented now to hold stock. They want to like get rid of that stock and fill it up with new consoles to sell for the holiday rush. And I think that getting Mario Kart out early helps them accomplish that. I just hope that they give Prime 4 enough time to breathe and be its own thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the biggest question, weirdly enough for me, is how they're going to handle Prime 4. It seems to me, based on the last trailer they had, and they gave it a very vague 2025 launch date, tells me that it is something tied to the Switch 2, because otherwise they could have given us a date. But it's somewhere tied to the launch, and so I think it's got to be. Yeah, I just think it's got to be a launch title. But I just can't see Nintendo doing Mario Kart and Prime 4. So that's my prediction, is still Prime 4 launch, Mario Kart the next month. So they give Prime
Yeah.
some room to breathe. They do some big promo for it because, I mean, we've been waiting on this game since the year the Switch launched. It was announced at E3 2017, back when E3 was still a thing. You know, that's how long ago Prime 4 was talked about. And it was just a JPEG, just a PNG, just saying it's being made, and then it got canceled, and then it gets redeveloped by Retro. And so it's kind of like, it's actually, in a weird way, it's a lot like Breath of the Wild was for the Wii U. The Wii U had the Wii Zelda for Wii U was the game, and they showed the trailer for it, and it was just, oh my gosh, what is this? And they say it's coming out in 2015. 2015 rolls around. Sorry, it's gonna have to get bumped to 2016. Sorry, it got delayed. Oh, never mind. It's coming to the NX, and that means it's coming in 2017. And so it just kept getting pushed off, and people forget that Breath of the Wild was a Wii U game. It's a port of a Wii U game. But everyone's like, no, it's the best-selling Switch game. Just like Mario Kart 8, it was the best-selling Wii U game and the best-selling Switch game. It's an insane track record. So you can tell that Nintendo is very interested in where Mario Kart goes and how, putting that out. So it's going to be interesting leading up. I think there's another thing I learned about too. So April 2nd is the Direct for the Switch 2. And then shortly after that, they're going to do a bunch of experience events. And in the US, as far as we can see right now, there's only 3 locations that have these events. And that's Los Angeles, Dallas, and New York. But I learned that, and they did say on the trailer, they're doing it all over the world. So if you actually look at the international dates, they go all the way up to about June 1st. So all through April, all through May, they basically have these experience events going out throughout the entire world, which tells me the Switch 2 has to launch after that. I just don't see them launching it mid-experience. I could be wrong. They could just totally blow us away and shadow drop this and just be like, "Yep, it's coming out, next week." Like April 2nd, and I don't think they do that though. I definitely don't think they do that. It'd be a really dumb move because they need to build the hype for it. They need to get people talking. They need to get people aware. They need the word of mouth going around. They need news outlets to talk about it. They need to get on Jimmy Fallon again. And
yeah, absolutely.
I think June would be their launch, because I think there was rumors that they do want to sell it Q1. Their fiscal Q1, which would be March through June. No, April through June. Sorry, March. End of March is their fiscal year. So April 1st, I think, is their beginning of their fiscal year, which is funny that, April 2nd, they're immediately jumping into the Direct and want to get that rolling so they can get this thing sold within Q1. So I'm going to say early to mid-June, get Prime 4 out. Then mid-July, get Mario Kart out. All the kids are early July, maybe even, which, tells me that they're not going to give Metroid a lot of time to shine. But unless they can get, the Switch out early June, like June 6th, which is a Friday, and then, give June to Metroid, then give July to Mario Kart. August, I don't know, it could be a new IP maybe. We never know. They could show something off. They love to show off new IPs. It could be also a Splatoon. They're kind of cutting it a little harder though, because last time they were able to get Breath of the Wild out in March, Mario Kart in April, and then it was like June or July they got Splatoon out. So it was like they love to get Splatoon out around the summer, but it might be a bit hard this time. I think they're going to be... I actually think there might be a Splatoon game, because they've kind of finished all the Splatfest for Splatoon 3, and Splatoon's just such a big game for them in Japan. It's a system seller in Japan. No Animal Crossing. I just can't see them launching Animal Crossing. Mario Kart's going to carry the system for the first year. I think they'll wait for Animal Crossing a little bit.
I agree.
I think... what other franchise? I think there'll be some form of Zelda representation. I don't know what though yet. There's rumors that it could be Breath of the Wild and or Tears of the Kingdom remastered. There's rumors it could be Ocarina of Time remastered or remade. I think it's going to be something like that, because we've already got Tears of the Kingdom in 2023. We got Echoes of Wisdom 2024. I just can't imagine they had another full-fledged Zelda game in the pipeline. I think it's some form of remaster remake just to kind of keep Zelda relevant. They're doing their once-a-year Zelda thing.
Yeah.
And that helps fill in the gaps too in the year. And I don't know, like I actually looked this up just the other day, or maybe it was this morning actually. I was looking up like what all the games that came out with the Switch One in 2017, and there was like 1 or 2 months where it was like I think like the game that was published by Nintendo was like Snipper Clips, right? Which is
Yeah.
it's a game, but it wasn't like a big game. But then I totally forgot that Xenoblade 2 came out in 2017 in December. Like
Mhm.
that was a big game. That came out the first year of the Switch. So there could be something. I know they got Xenoblade Chronicles X coming out as a remake for the Wii U game, so I think that kind of covers Xenoblade, so I don't think that's an option. Fire Emblem, we haven't heard anything about. It could be a Fire Emblem game.
Yeah, supposedly the next Fire Emblem game, like according to rumors, is going to be a remake. Um, and I think it's I can't remember the exact title, but it's like Fire Emblem in the Holy War or something like that. I'm gonna get butchered in the comments, but it supposedly it's a remake. Um, I think just to go back real quick on Zelda,
Oh, yeah.
I think that there's absolutely I agree with you. I think there's zero chance of like a new Zelda game unless it's a new Hyrule Warriors game. I think that's like the only shot, and I don't think it's good. I think that it's probably a remake, but that is hypothetically another option for getting Zelda out. And my understanding is it's been a little while, but I've never been a fan of. I've never bought those games. I've never actually played them. Supposedly they're good, but I've never played them. I don't know when the last one came out, but that is something that they have done in the past. I think if I had to guess, supposedly rumor is they've been sitting on Twilight Princess and or Wind Waker ports for a little while. Um, and like I'd be on board with either of those. I love Wind Waker. It's before Tears of the Kingdom, it was my favorite Zelda game. Um, so I'd be on board with either of those. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think well, yeah, they've been definitely been sitting on those for a while. It's actually kind of crazy that it never came out during the Switch life cycle because those just seem like easy money. For me, having a Wii U, I kind of forget that anyone who didn't get a Wii U just literally has never experienced these HD remakes or remasters. So it's just funny to me. But yeah, they definitely need to bring those over. I kind of look at those as they're like a little back pocket, like, oh, we just throw that out when we know for certain we can't get a Zelda game out. But they may have something else that we don't know about. They could have some developer that we don't know about, basically building up a remaster of something. But we don't know. I don't know. That one's kind of up in the air. I don't have any good strong predictions. There's rumors, but I think most of the rumors are somewhat. The only reason there's a rumor about the Breath of the Wild remaster is that apparently there's some behind the scenes talk that they had a Breath of the Wild demo running with like a remastered one with like higher, 60 frames 4K or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which would be cool. I don't know necessarily, unless it's just a patch, I don't know necessarily if I would pay for like a full price for that, like on the Switch 2. Like if they just let me put my Switch 1 cart in and they gave me a patch and I got 4K 60, that would be nice. But I would be shocked if they did anything, if they put upgrade textures and upgrade, polygons and stuff. That's just not happening.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's likely. There also was because I remember when this. I don't know if the rumors got debunked or not. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. But I know that there was a project name that got leaked that was like U King O or something like that. That was talked about a lot in the Nintendo speculation space for a while last year as a possible launch title, and apparently like the way that breaks down is um, more or less a reference to Breath of the Wild, but with a suffix that pointed to essentially a new upgraded version for whatever the next console was going to be. But I haven't heard about this in quite some time, so I don't know. Perhaps the rumor got debunked, but I think that was another thing that was potentially pointing to a Breath of the Wild remaster or at least some sort of port.
Yeah, I just don't know. I wonder if it was just a proof of concept too. They've done that with Zelda a lot. Like they use Zelda, they love to use Zelda as a tech demo. With the original GameCube tech demo that preceded Wind Waker, the tech demo for like should Twilight Princess like graphics on the Wii U. So it could have been some form of tech demo, just kind of showing some of the capabilities. But it would be nice if it came to light, and I just hope that Nintendo doesn't try to repackage it as a full-fledged game, and that they let
Hmm.
people. My thought is like what they could do if they really want to sell NSO to subscriptions is basically kind of the same way you have DLC for the NSO, where you get like, I don't know if this is just the expansion pass or if I think this is just the expansion pass maybe, but like with my NSO subscription, I get like all the Mario Kart 8 tracks. Like I don't have to pay for those.
Hmm.
They're just built in. I get the DLC for Splatoon 2. I get this DLC for Animal Crossing. I get like all these different DLCs. It'd be kind of cool if they're like, hey, if you have NSO, these select Switch games are all going to be improved. But they also had the option to pay for the DLC, so like, or you can pay $20.
Yeah.
So you can either pay, add this into as a perk to your NSO subscription, or just pay the $20 per game. And then if you had like 5 good games, like say you had Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, Pikmin 4, and I don't know what else, maybe Animal Crossing. I don't know, maybe not Animal Crossing. I don't know, something where
Yeah, I
like it
don't
just
know.
improves the performance and the visuals of the game, and those are all games that are like tied to the NSO subscription and would normally be $20 a game, but if you have NSO, they're all just included. That'd be a great way to get people to buy the expansion pass. Though there's also rumors that they're going to increase the cost of NSO across the board, which I actually fully believe they're going to do that.
Yeah, probably.
Um, it's just, well, they're adding more content. If they add enough content to it, then I'm not super upset. Like, it's still in the same ballpark price as all the other services for like Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
if they just need to add enough content to justify it. If they added GameCube Virtual Console stuff, I'd be like, of course I'll pay for it. But
Hmm.
um, yeah. So anyway, what other games do you think? So when we say like the first year, we're talking like from like launch to a year from launch, right? We're talking like if they launch in June to like June of 2026.
Yeah, we could go out that far. I was originally just like considering just the calendar year of 2024, or sorry, 2025. Um, but one thing that I haven't heard talked about at all since um, we got release or not release the leak about the mouse functionality for the Joy Cons. You know what would actually be great to show that off that we haven't seen in forever is a new Star Fox game.
Yeah,
If they did a Star Fox game, could you imagine controlling the laser independent of flying the ship?
that'd be
Like
amazing.
with the mouse controls, like I could totally see that being a thing. I could totally see that being how they bring back Star Fox. Now, is that guaranteed within the first year? I don't know. It depends on if they have anything else that shows off the mouse controls. But I think we are definitely going to get at least one mouse control focused first party Nintendo game, if not more than one. And I don't think it's going to be like a port or anything like that. Another game that comes to mind that would be more casual focused, you mentioned Snipper Clips earlier. I could totally see a spiritual successor to Snipper Clips, but it uses mouse controls for cutting shapes into stuff. I could totally see that being the case. So I think that definitely is going to be like essentially a niche that they want to fill to have something to showcase that functionality so that it doesn't just like totally die like the IR sensor did on the Joy-Cons for like Switch 1. I could also totally see them doing like a 1-2 switch sort of game. I'm kind of hoping it's going to be called Switch 2-3 or Switch 2-1. That is my secret hope, but I don't know, maybe it's got like a totally different title, but those are some other ones that I could totally imagine them doing within the first year, at least something focused on the mouse controls. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that like something like either a little indie game and then like some kind of tech demo game is going to be the same way Wii Sports and Nintendo Land and One Two Switch. They're going to have something. They're definitely going to have. It's going to be interesting though how like my thought would be like the best game to showcase the mouse controls is a new Mario Paint.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know back in the day when Mario Paint came out on the SNES, they had a mouse adapter for this for that Super Nintendo. So
Wait, they
Nintendo,
did? I didn't know this.
yes, Nintendo has had a mouse before. This is not their first accessory, but back then it was an accessory. This is actually built into the controller. So what better way to bring in like this new era of Nintendo now fully embracing mouse controls than having a Mario Paint game that you can buy day one that has built-in mini games, has built-in user developed content with songs and drawings and all kinds of fun stuff. I think that would be a great way to do it, especially because it continues the Mario, especially with it being the year of Mario 40th anniversary. You can just flood the market with Mario, unless Nintendo feels like it's overkill. They may not want to go too ham with Mario, but they could do Mario Paint, Mario Kart, and 3D Mario all in the same year would kind of be wild.
It would be. I could totally see that being the case. I could see that being a standalone game, but I could also see it being like, do you remember how on the 3DS when it launched they had that I think it was like called Face Raiders or something like that. It was
Yeah.
essentially just a tech demo software built into the game. I could also totally see that just being like sort of like an NSO add-on. Like, hey, if you got NSO, like you get Mario Paint. You know what I mean? Or like the new Mario Paint. I could see that being the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of ways they could approach it, but I think you're right. Like that would be a really cool callback and very fitting for the year and the technology of the console.
To be fair, I think what was it? There was a game that came out that they basically said was like the spiritual successor to Mario Paint. I think Mario Maker was kind of the spiritual successor to Mario Paint in a way, but it'd be interesting. It'd be very interesting. Maybe they wouldn't call it Mario Paint too, just because I mean nowadays people would be like, if it's called Mario Paint, then they're going to assume it's an art program. But only people from back in the day would know. So it might not be. It could be, again, probably just something we just can't even imagine. We're always pulling from things they've done before, but Nintendo loves to surprise and delight and pull stuff out of nowhere. So I think, whether they pull from the existing IPs or not, I don't know. They've already done a sequel to 1-2 Switch. They had, what was it called? It was 1-2-3 Switch? No, I don't remember. Switch It Up or something. Anyway, there was some other sequel one that most people don't remember, but they did make a sequel. And so I don't know. Maybe they'll make a new one. I think there's rumor that they're going to try and bring like a more advanced Wii Sports. I mean, or like a Switch Sports, basically, just like bring it with more stuff and more controls. So who knows? That would be a great game to have in the beginning too, because it still is a motion control sports game that seems to sell systems. But they do, if they want to keep it like one game per month, they definitely only have so many games they can launch. So who knows? I was thinking about the Star Fox thing you were mentioning too, though, and I was thinking about a game that very, very much got forgotten on the Wii U, which is Star Fox Zero, because I love Star Fox, but that game was trash. I'm just sorry.
I never played it.
Oh, it was so hard to control. I know where they're going with it. The concept was good in theory, but in practice it was just atrocious. It was so hard to fight enemies and fly at the same time. So it'd be interesting if they could take that game and not port it, but basically redesign it. And I know that's kind of asking a lot because the game's kind of built around those controls, but I still think if they really went in there and tried, they could kind of remove that kind of control, still have a pretty good game behind it. Because I think the level design and the whole concept of the game was still fun. It just was really hard to control. So if they could just, strip out some of the stuff, kind of remake the game, don't call, just rebrand it, they could kind of repurpose in a Wii U game there and get their Star Fox, with pointer controls. Because that was the thing about that Star Fox, was that you had independent flying and pointing controls. So like you were saying before, so you could do that easier with the mouse controls now. You just have one control with the analog moving the ship around, and then the other is pointing and aiming. So it's a possibility if Nintendo wanted to reuse assets and not have to pour a lot of time and energy into it. But I think maybe that era is gone, though, because if they wanted to do that, what was I gonna say? Sorry, I thought your video froze there for a second.
No, it didn't. No, I just said extremely still.
Is because now with the Switch 2, with the graphics being better, it might not. it was already kind of didn't look great on the Wii U. Like they didn't push the graphics fidelity, so now they should have done it on the Switch. But yeah, my brain kind of farted there for a bit. Though I was thinking like, oh, maybe I kind of almost talked myself out of it while talking about it.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that there are very few games on the Wii U, the first party Nintendo games on the Wii U that were particularly notable that have not been ported. I'm only aware really of Yoshi's Woolly World and Star Fox Zero, and then up until, the pretty recent announcement, Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I famously have tried to play 7 times.
Huh,
and each time get like an hour into it and I don't understand it, and then I put it down and I always wish that I'd gone back to it, and then my external hard drive for the Wii U failed, so now I don't actually have the game anymore, so I'm gonna have to wait for this new for the port in order to actually finish the game. But I really like Star Fox Zero is one of the last remaining ones. It was the last time we got a Star Fox game. I'm not saying that, like you said, I don't necessarily know that it needs to like straight be ported. Obviously it needs a little bit of redesign, but I would love to see Star Fox get another chance. And I think that with the mouse controls, like, I don't know, maybe it would be much clunkier than I'm imagining. A lot of times, you imagine something and once it actually gets executed, it's a lot worse than you ever thought it could be. But I don't know, like it also wouldn't surprise me if at least somewhere behind the scenes at Nintendo, someone has pitched that idea. That would not surprise me in the least.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some form of Star Fox, but and because it's funny because when you actually look at Star Fox, they made the original game, and then I think Star Fox 64 is technically just a remake of Star Fox 1 with some elements of Star Fox 2 in there. And then, well, they did make Star Fox Adventure, which was a completely different game. And then there's Star Fox Assault, which is its own game. But then Star Fox Command was a really weird game. But I was just thinking, like, oh, remake Star Fox Command since you can, draw with the mouse and stuff.
I played the heck out of Star Fox Command, dude.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I know, like, looking back, I'd probably be like, oh, that game was not as good as I thought. But I actually did play that a lot. It was kind of a wild game for Nintendo to make because the story arcs in that were so bizarre. Crazy. It's hard to believe that game was allowed to be made. So, but yeah, it's funny. Star Fox Zero, pretty bad setup for a game. Not a great thing to end on, but I can't imagine they're done with the IP. I'd love them just to actually, like, if they want to, just remake, I don't know, just one of the good Star Foxes, bring back Assault or, I don't know, just because I don't know. I think they're that's why they did what they did on the Wii U, because they're always saying, like, oh, we can't just make the same game again. We got to come up with something new and different to make it fun and different from the previous games. And so that's what they thought they could do with Star Fox, was like, yeah, this is the way to do it. If they can't come up with some really fun concept, and maybe mouse controls is a fun concept, but if it's not up to their standards, they just won't make it. I mean, look at F-Zero. They just decided F-Zero GX is like the pinnacle of F-Zero, and it can't get any better than that. They haven't figured out how to make it better.
It'd be nice to get a port.
Yeah, seriously, just make the stinking port. Just remake the game now. That's all we ask. I mean, F-Zero 99 was at least a bone, but, it's like, okay, we can only play the SNES, F-Zero so many times.
I do think it's kind of wild, of all the 99 games that they could have made, like, in their entire IP, like, they picked F-Zero, which I think is really interesting.
They did a great job. I was actually shocked at how into that I got. It was really well done. I had a blast with that. The whole 99 concept was just wild. It's just they really kind of hit gold with that one. I know some people are still very obsessed with Tetris 99, and there's still, I get promos for all the new little twists they do on it, which they're promoting different games. They throw some theme into Tetris 99. I think they had one for Echoes of Wisdom. So yeah, it's kind of amazing.
You know what I'm shocked hasn't gotten a 99 game yet?
What?
Is WarioWare.
Yeah.
WarioWare 99 could be pretty wild.
That'd be interesting. I don't know. I think that could work, but I guess the other games are just a very much more simple concept to get.
Hmm.
I am
Absolutely.
frustrated they locked the Mario 35 one to like a time release, just like they did with the 3D All Stars.
Yeah.
So, but that'd
I
be
did. I did grab 3D All Star. I never played 35, but I did grab 3D All Stars when it came out because my wife grew up with the N64. I grew up with the GameCube and the Wii, and so we're just like, I mean, we gotta grab that, and then we we get it, and like I think I played through 64 on it, but and like a little bit of Sunshine, but then like it was just too much Mario in one package, and it also was like a bare bones port. Like there was
Mhm.
no enhancement whatsoever, which was pretty wild.
Yeah, it was tough. I actually have a hard time going back to 64 now. It's just because now once you get used to the newer camera controls, like you realize how janky the original game is. I mean, nostalgia is great and it can push you through it, but like I don't have as much nostalgia for 64 as some people do, even though I did play it. And it's funny, I actually don't have any nostalgia for Mario Sunshine. That's actually the main reason I bought that pack because I really I wanted to finally beat Sunshine. I've beaten Mario 64. Actually, I beat it on the DS version though, but I mean, it's essentially, the same level still. And but yeah, I finally got to beat Mario Sunshine for the first time because of that. And I actually I started trying to play it again just recently, and I'm like, oh man, that game controls really rough.
It does.
It's so rough. Like the camera just does some weird stuff, and like the analog is very sensitive. I don't know why. Like I'm trying to walk on, like doing it at Rico Harbor, trying to walk along the beams, and I'm just falling off all the time.
Good luck.
It's
Yeah.
so annoying. The camera doesn't do what you want. So yeah, I just gave up. Galaxy is a lot, probably the best out of the whole thing because it has the fixed camera mostly, and yeah, obviously you don't have the motion controls, but you can still play it without it, and it works fine. That
Hmm.
game holds up phenomenally. It's definitely one of the best Mario games ever made, outside
Yeah.
of Odyssey. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I also
Absolutely.
bought
I
it
think. I
physically
think.
because I was like, a game's gonna be worth so much one day because it was a limited
Oh
release.
yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know if it is right now. I haven't looked at it
Oh
on
no, no,
eBay or
no! Wait, you
anything.
gotta wait another 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you gotta wait longer, but at the same time, like I don't know. There's probably some guy out there who's listed it for $1,000 to see if he can get someone to buy it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, well, So what else? Where were we going with that? We're talking about Mario games and Mario the 40th anniversary, and
Yeah.
So if we were looking out, so we're thinking just this year, right? We were kind of going over, and we're not really. There's a few games I'm not sure what will fill in. There's probably some new versions of games we don't know about. But if we're going into now 2026, right? We've
Mm-hmm.
gone through the holiday season. What's like a game you put out in January, right? When things have died down. What's like a game throwaway game? I hate to say throwaway, but like what kind of games do you do in
I mean,
January?
apparently Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Yeah, exactly, right. I think that they kind of are trying to get more awareness for DK, but they don't have a proper DK game ready. And I think
Yeah.
again, Nintendo has this thing where I think they want to at least represent some of their core franchises at least once a year. Some of the games they can do that, like Mario, Zelda. I think DK they're gonna try and do that with. But obviously, I don't think they're gonna put out a new Animal Crossing theme every year. They're not gonna put out a new Mario Kart every year. But
I think we're gonna get a Kirby. There's the Planet Robobot rumors, like the port of that.
yeah, but I think that's
So
for
maybe
Switch One.
that's true.
So I
That's
think
true.
that's going to be like it's almost like one of the swan song games of the Switch One. As far as what they'll do for Switch Two, I think we're going to see a lot of original games. That's the thing that was so unique about the Switch One is that the Wii U's failure ended up actually being the Switch's success because it gave it a launch pad of so many games.
Hmm.
We really underestimate. I mean, Breath of the Wild is a Wii U game, is a port of
Hmm.
a Wii U game. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a Wii U game.
Yeah.
Um, what else was there? I think some of the other games were probably in development for Wii U and got moved over, but Splatoon 2 is an original game, but it's heavily based on the Wii U game.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, there's just it, and then as the years went on, when they were light on games, they kept porting games over. Pikmin 3 got ported over. Mario 3D World got ported over.
Hmm.
Um, what other games? There's so many games
And they
that
all got some additional content too, which was pretty cool. Or at least Pikmin 3 Deluxe and Mario 3D World did, which was
yeah.
really neat.
And so there's just a lot of games that just allowed Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze plus
Hmm.
Funky Kong. And,
Yeah, the best
uh,
mode ever.
yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of ports that kind of kept the Switch going, whereas the Wii U, I mean, Switch 2, sorry, doesn't have that. They have, especially because it's backwards compatible. So you can't really be remastering games from the Switch, which is why I'm curious what the Breath of the Wild thing would be. I just can't imagine they're going to relaunch a remaster game. It's got to be like a patch or just a frame rate resolution boost. It's not. It's just you can't. You can play Breath of the Wild still on both
Yeah,
systems.
I could totally see like as a potential pathway, not necessarily like what they're definitely going to do, but I could totally see where like kind of like with the new Nintendo Music service, how they like drop stuff like every Monday or whatever. Like I could totally see them doing like a thing where, oh yeah, we've got, like maybe like Switch games don't perform better on Switch 2 at baseline, but I could also just totally see them being like, yep, we're going to release this upgrade this month,
Hmm.
and you could like sort of like you said, like maybe if you the expansion pass, you get it for free, and maybe it's $20 if you just want the baseline version, which for me would be worth it for Breath of the Wild because I don't even have the DLC for it. So if I got like everything for like $20 in an upgraded version, like I'd go for that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I could also totally see them like truly just repackaging the game and selling it again at full price. But I think the game is different this time around because the media that the game is on is presumably more or less the same as a cartridge, as opposed to like Wii U with a disc versus the cartridge.
Yeah.
So it is, I think it is a little bit of a different game this time, but and the market is also different. The console upgrades are sort of a new thing from the PS4. I mean, not so new anymore, but with this generation of upgrading, and I think part of that had to do with supply chain issues following the pandemic, and how hard it was to get a PlayStation, and people still having to sell games. Um, but it is totally possible that there is something like that, and maybe that fills some of these months.
Yeah, I mean that's true. That actually could help with a lot of that. And I hadn't considered them repackaging Breath of the Wild with the DLC, and maybe they do an enhanced version where it's got all the DLC, it's got enhanced frame rate, enhanced resolution, and maybe it's also maybe enhanced textures. They do just go the whole way, sell it for 60 again. I don't know. It seems
Mhm.
crazy to sell it 70, but Nintendo's like that. They're just assuming they're selling it to people that have never played the game. You got to keep in mind, like we assume that like, oh, everybody's played it, but it's like not. I mean, there's new kids coming up all the time. My son, he's playing Breath of the Wild right now on the Switch, but like, I mean, what if I maybe I'm a family that didn't have the Switch 1 and now the Switch 2's coming around. My brother, he never bought the Switch, and I know they're looking to start a family, so it's like it's like I don't know. It's like there's always new families popping up that just didn't have those games, didn't play it, and I don't know. It's always a demographic for that, but everyone thinks they're being ripped off because like, oh, I have to pay $70 again, or $60. It's like, yeah, well, you don't have to. You have the game, and to
Yeah,
be
like,
fair,
well, and the
it
thing
still runs fine for me.
and the thing is if Nintendo packages it for $70, and I'm not trying to be like like defending increasing the price of games or anything, but at the same time, like there are people who are going to buy it. Like there are people who are just going to like say, "Yep, that's worth it to me," and go for it. Whether or not they're people who've played it before or have not, or maybe they like previously had it and sold the game. Like not everyone holds on to their games. I hold on to like pretty much every game. I don't think I've ever given like sold a game to GameStop or anything, but like some people like do just like they'll play a game for a few months and then they'll just like sell it right back, and then they don't have access to it, and so maybe that is the market for these things. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, it's hard to say. I don't know. Nintendo. I think that, they're not experimenting too hard with the system, but we might see as Nintendo experiment a little bit more with the marketing and like pushing the
Hmm.
limits a little bit of what they think they can get away with, especially with some of the pricing and stuff. But they definitely want to succeed, so they're not going to push too hard. But I could see them trying out this whole upgrade function because it's going to be one of the first times that they can do anything like this. I mean, not 100%. I mean, we've had Game Boy to Game Boy Color to Game Boy Advance, and they're all the cartridges there, and DS to 3DS. But this is a little different where the library, like this is the first time Nintendo's had the accounts like rollover. Like this is like their
Mm-hmm.
big thing now, where they're like, okay, you have an account that stays with you now, from system to system, and I think that opens up a whole new world of opportunities that Nintendo may want to explore. And you know what, though, like you could try repackaging Breath of the Wild at $70, and maybe what they do is they do sell a copy of it. It's a physical Switch 2 enhanced copy with all the DLC, because for the people that don't have the game, right? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the game, you have to go buy the Switch 1 game and then buy the add-on package, or they could just say, "Hey, here's one that's for you that never had the game. Here's the cartridge. Here's the game." But if you do have the game and you see you have a digital copy, you just get the upgrade, or you just buy the upgrade for $10. Or if you're like me who has a physical copy, you just have to have the physical copy in the game, in the system, while you play the enhanced version.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you don't have people like cheating the system, right? But you still can get all the enhanced perks. Who knows? And then make it $10 for part of NSO, and it's like that's free money if you just make it like for people that already have the game. You got 34 million people that bought the game, and everyone spends $10 getting the enhanced version, and probably not everybody. Let's just say 20% of people do. That's still millions of people that you just made $10 off of for basically
Yeah.
increasing the resolution, frame rate, and I don't know, like you didn't have to rebuild the game from scratch.
Well, and we have a Nintendo Direct, at least right now, scheduled for April. Um, and in a typical year, you would expect usually like a February, like a June and a September Direct or so. So whether or not we get a September Direct, is obviously like we have absolutely no information on that. But let's consider like the all important date for the Nintendo Switch Online account memberships, which is like middle of October, right? Where it's like, okay, that's when a lot of people's memberships are coming up for renewal, and they may consider like canceling it. I could totally see a world in which Nintendo announces like in a September Direct, yep, this is, we are just going to start offering upgraded versions that, come with the account system, the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass. And the first one is Breath of the Wild, and it's coming out in October. Like, just to keep people on. I could totally see that being a thing. So we may not even know in the April Direct and get in like a September Direct or something. Like, we have no idea. But I think that they are going to want to offer something around October time to keep people on board the NSO train.
Yeah, it also gives people incentive to go to the Switch 2, because it's
Mm-hmm.
fun that you get to bring your old games, but they're just better on Switch 2. You know what I mean? It's like, because if you just have the same game, it's like, yeah, I can play my Switch 1 game on a Switch 2, but it's the same game. So why not just play it on my Switch 1? It doesn't do anything for me. But if like, no, bring it over to Switch 2, and we have like, these 5 to 10 Nintendo games where we've done enhancements to it, it's like, oh, now I really want to have a Switch 2, because I want to see what my Breath of the Wild game looks like at 4K 60, and all that, or I want to see what Pikmin 4 looks like with 4K resolution, and that's what we're here for. You and I are just here for the Pikmin 4
Yeah, we're here
Deluxe.
for
But
Pikmin.
Pikmin 4 co-op finally.
Oh
Online
gosh, that'd be
Dandori battles.
beautiful. Oh yeah, I'd love that. That
So,
would sorely missing from Switch 1. I don't know if it could have handled it, but
no, I think we maybe not, but that'd be fun, because then you could have streamers just doing Dandori battles, Dandori tournaments.
yeah, absolutely.
As
The two big multiplayer games for Nintendo would be
Right.
Smash and Pikmin 4 Deluxe.
Oh, and Splatoon, but yeah,
Oh yeah, Splatoon, yeah, duh.
and Mario Kart.
And I think there's half a chance that Metroid Prime 4 has some sort of multiplayer functionality. I don't think it's great. Like the chances are great, but I think there is at least half a chance, especially considering that Retro hired a bunch of people from like Call of Duty, etc. developers, like during the time when they were making Prime 4. And I could totally see, like, with mouse controls, and if it's their launch game, I could totally see it having multiplayer functionality. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I was actually going to disagree with you there, but no, you kind of sold me on it a little bit, especially because they could go the Prime Hunters kind of route, especially because they've
Hmm.
got Silex back in the game. They could definitely do something. If they kind of brought back the Hunters, Metroid Prime Hunters style multiplayer, I'd be down for that, especially with the mouse controller. I think, yeah, we might be onto something. Could explain why it's
And
taken so long.
maybe Nintendo's hero shooter. You know what I mean? Like they don't really have like quite like they have the shooter in Splatoon, but that's obviously quite different from like a hero shooter. And granted, the hero shooter genre is like packed full. We don't necessarily need another one, but Nintendo tends to come to the game a little late, and it wouldn't surprise me if they at least attempt it. And I don't know. I mean, we don't know exactly what the hook for Prime 4 is going to be. Like, as of now, we have one gameplay trailer that, while looks beautiful and is for Switch 1, doesn't exactly, show us anything that's fundamentally new or gives Prime 4 an identity of its own. And, in the landscape that we're currently in, if they are going to give it the prime slot, no pun intended, of being the launch game, I don't think it is out of the question that it could have a multiplayer mode. And like, watch, like in a few months, like I'm going to be eating my words. It's just a single player campaign and it's like fine or something. But I could also totally see it being phenomenal and having like multiplayer functionality and like them really believing in it, because clearly to restart development on a game in a franchise as like that really is not like their best IP by any stretch of the imagination in terms of sales. Um, they clearly believe in this game, especially since they made it their like one last thing of the June 2024 direct, which I don't know, is that for theatrics or is it because it's an actually good game? Could be both, could be neither. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, who
Um,
knows? It could have been because there was a lot of interesting games announced in that direct. So I mean, they could have made the Zelda one the final thing, but because the Shadow Drop Metroid Prime Remaster, they didn't make a big fuss about that.
mhm.
So I don't know. I'm. It's so funny. Like I was thinking about if they do make it a Switch 1 and 2 game, though. Do you think that Switch 1 could support the multiplayer for it?
I don't know. That's like the only thing that like really throws a wrench in it is like, would they make multiplayer a Switch 2 only thing? Like, I don't think so.
I think
Like,
that'd
I
be an
feel
interesting
like,
move because a lot of people who are looking forward to Metroid are not looking. They're not anticipating a multiplayer. That's just a reality. Nothing's
mhm,
been told of multiplayer. So I mean, some people would feel like they're being left out, but at the same time, I think most of the people that want to play Metroid Prime 4 are playing want to play it for the single player. So if they
mhm,
added multiplayer only to the Switch 2, that and keep in mind too, a lot of the Metroid, fanatics, they're diehard Nintendo people that are probably going to buy Switch 2 and want to play it on Switch 2 because they know it's going to look better. So you might offend a few people, but overall, it would be a great way to promote multiplayer on the Switch 2, to obviously promote the Switch 2, making it exclusive multiplayer for, so who knows? Like, I feel like that's the one thing I think, Nintendo might start surprising us with is the software. They kind of drop the ball with the leaks on the hardware, but if there's one thing Nintendo does is they really know how to hold the cards close to their chest when it comes to software. They always kind of drop things out of nowhere, and because there's no manufacturing people to leak it, right? It's all built in Japan where there's a lot more scrutiny. So I
mhm.
think we're gonna be just absolutely surprised and delighted by what
Yeah.
Nintendo releases. I think April 2nd. Obviously, they need to show off some hardware, but I do think the trailer we just saw was designed to kind of get most of the hardware stuff out of the way, so that April 2nd
Mhm,
will be more of like, okay, you've seen the hardware. Here's what it does. And they're definitely going to go into more detail. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be like, here's how the hardware works with games, and that's what people care about. At the end of the day,
mhm,
Switch 1 did so well because it was the best hardware on the market. It sold well because it had the best games on the market. And I think that Nintendo
mhm.
knows that. April 2nd is going to be a giant showcase of phenomenal games. I think we're also going to see a lot of third party companies start announcing games for Switch 2 over the next few months.
Yep, I
because now
agree.
they're free to do so. I think that's part of the reason Nintendo also made the announcement so that third parties could start announcing stuff. There's rumors that Halo is coming to PS5 and Switch 2, and I know that Microsoft has this coming week a. I'm kind of dating ourselves on this podcast here, but like they have a developer conference coming up with Halo. With they probably talk about a lot of software, and they may announce that there. Now that
Hmm.
they can, right? So it'd be interesting to see if that announcement comes out of Halo leaving Xbox and going to other systems, and it'd be so insane if it came to Switch too. I'd buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you'd asked me that when I was a kid, I'd say there'd be no chance that that ever happens, and here we are. It's an actual possibility now.
Well, Microsoft is like our Sega, right? Or
Yeah,
or is or it's like
absolutely,
it's. I
absolutely,
mean, it's granted. I grew up also with the Sonic Sega and Mario Sega battle as well, but I was way younger than a lot of the people that remember it better than me. So Master Chief
absolutely.
was kind of like the new Sonic. Like he was the mascot of Xbox. He was the reason to buy an Xbox. He's the reason Xbox 360 sold so well. And I think that it's definitely an end of an era if they put him on other systems. But it's Microsoft's a software company. It's in the name,
Hmm.
Microsoft.
Yep.
They probably should do it. Just make that money, get Halo out there, kind of keep the franchise alive a little bit. Um, but I guess yeah, my point with that was just that we have. I'm curious to see what third party support we get. There's been a lot of people leakers saying that we're going to be really surprised by the third party support that Nintendo Switch 2 gets. I think the third parties are way more behind Nintendo now. They kind of saw how well the Switch did, and they think they see the vision behind the Switch 2. And if all the third parties come to Switch 2, then I think it's a guaranteed success because that's the
Well, and I think that.
yeah.
Oh, go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna, that's the one thing Nintendo seemed to lack in the past when they failed was third party support. If they get third party support, it's a done deal.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at a lot of the third party support that was on the Switch, like you had some ports which were less than stellar, like Witcher 3 comes to mind
Mm-hmm.
as being one that didn't do so well. But I feel like the power difference this time around between what your average game is being made for, since a lot of them are coming out, cross platform, like PS4, PS5. Like if the Switch 2 is about as powerful as a PS4 Pro as some of the leaks suggest, like then I think that really opens the door for the third party support that you're talking about. And I think that especially if the install base is there for it, like in the beginning, obviously you'll if third parties want to be there like at launch, like they're just going to assume that the install base is going to be stellar. In order for that third party support to continue, I imagine that the install base will have to, you know, continue to grow. But I think at least in the beginning, like we're pretty much guaranteed to get some pretty good stuff. There are rumors of Jedi Survivor being ported over. Less important to me since I have a PS5. So a lot of these games I either already have played or own or could own through those means. But if they're available on a PlayStation or sorry on a Switch 2, and they look great, they run great. These ports are like great this time. Then I think that really is a game changer for a lot of people and probably brings in a different market than Nintendo has had before, and potentially like again this like we sort of talked about in the last podcast, the Steam Deck didn't sell like phenomenally well, but like if these ports are like look really good on the Switch too, like that does sort of at least fill in that edge of the map when it comes to the market, of just a it's able to play some of the third party games and still look great doing it.
Yeah, well, I know like the big games too. Like you think about like I hate to say it, but like Fortnite is still really popular. I'm thinking of like the live service games that are out there that are really popular. Overwatch,
Mm-hmm.
Apex Legends, just a lot of those big games that have a huge install base of people. Like a lot of those are on Switch, but they don't run very well. But now to get like really like good versions, like running at 60 frames per second, like and look good on the system, like those games will do well too. Like I don't know, it's just. And then you've got your like there's rumors like Red Dead Redemption 2 coming to Switch 2, which is a huge, amazing game, beautiful showpiece. Um, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. what other major titles come to the Switch 2. But it kind of depends too. As developers move more and more to actually utilizing the hardware of the PS5, we might start to see less and less of that third party support. We might just see huge third party support, but just for games that have already come out.
Hmm.
Huge amount of reports, um, like Elden Ring, right? Things like
Hmm.
that we might see. But overall, so I think the launch of the Switch 2 will be really heavy with games. And for people like me who only have a Switch, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to catch up on a lot of games everyone else has had a chance to play and play them portably, but I don't, I don't expect like Grand Theft Auto 6 to be coming to Switch 2. I don't expect the next Elder Scrolls game. I don't expect some of
Hmm.
these big, really big games to be coming to Switch 2 still. I think those are still going to stay on PS5, still stay on, well, I was going to say Xbox Series X, but honestly, I think Microsoft's basically done with that. I mean, maybe developers are still making it, but it's basically PS5
Hmm.
and PC. So we'll see. Um, but yeah, it's like, we're trying to play Nostradamus here, but it's like, because it feels like they're trying to replicate the Switch 1, but at the same time, I feel like they know they can't do the exact same thing. So it's going to be a lot of curveballs here. It's new management too, really. That's the thing
Yeah.
too. We got to keep that in mind. Also, one thing to consider too, I don't think we've really talked about is, so when you look at the Switch, it's basically, when you look at what hardware it represents, if you're trying to connect it to other hardware, it's basically a souped up Xbox 360,
Hmm.
right? So it's been running on that kind of hardware for a long time. So the development costs are basically in the same realm as an Xbox 360 games were, which was a lot more easier to make games for and a little cheaper. Well, if you looked as developers moved to the PS4 and now to PS5, what their struggle is just longer and more difficult development costs because of the assets needed and the complications of the game. Do you think we're going to see Nintendo struggle in this transition to the bigger hardware because they have to now adapt to these new, longer development cycles to get any games made? You know, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were both 6-year games, and they were on that hardware. Are we going to see Nintendo basically not launch a new Zelda game like that until the end of the Switch 2's life cycle?
I think that that's an excellent question. And so I think the short answer is probably yeah. I think that we end up seeing much longer development times. At the same time, you've probably seen the video, but Nintendo Forecast doing God's work had a video, I don't know, a few weeks ago maybe, that was essentially sort of just casually mentioned that some of the like boundaries between some of the EPD teams have sort of dissipated in a way. So it seems like they're shuffling around the way that they make games internally. So it's totally possible that they're experimenting with some sort of pipeline where, not necessarily all of one team is working on the same game at the same time. Like they're like different stages of production, and maybe like as a game is finishing up, maybe concept artists are working on like the next game, for example. You know what I mean? Like not everyone's always working on the same thing. So it's possible that they're trying something different internally, and maybe they don't get hit super hard. I don't know what the state of like AI assistive tools, not necessarily generative AI, but like assistive tools when it comes to like coding or whatever, what that looks like in the game development space, since that is not my industry. But at the same time, I feel like we are in a landscape that is rapidly changing, and so like I could totally see the answer being yep, like we get literally one 3D Zelda game, and it's towards the end of this console's life cycle in terms of a new one. um but I could also totally see it be where like yeah, other people are taking 7-8 years eventually to develop a single game, but Nintendo's still keeping it down at like 5 to 6. Like maybe they're faster on average, like who knows. But I think definitely like development times are going to increase. I think we've already seen that with Tears of the Kingdom over Breath of the Wild, like that. Even essentially Tears of the Kingdom being granted, a little bit more than just a souped up version of Breath of the Wild, like it still took a considerable amount of time to develop, much longer than like games took when you and I were kids. And so I think we've seen the effects already. I think they probably continue. But to how much Nintendo is able to mitigate that with their ability to innovate, or who knows, maybe that even like makes it worse, because they're trying to come up with new ideas as opposed to just like essentially doing the same thing but bigger. Um, you know, it's really hard to predict. I think it's one of those situations where you just sort of have to hold two like diametrically opposed views to be potentially true at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, there's some signs I think Nintendo has been prepping for this day. Two signs I feel like, and also I think part of the reason Tears of the Kingdom took longer is because of COVID. I think it actually probably could have launched sooner if it wasn't for that. It probably really hit
That's
their
true.
development cycle pretty hard because they announced it in 2019. So they probably were getting ready to churn it out, and then yeah, COVID hit. But then you look at so two games that kind of came to mind. One is Pikmin 4, and one is the new DK remake for Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Pikmin 4 uses the Unreal Engine, and
Mm.
DK Country Returns is using the Unity engine. And so to me, what that shows is that Nintendo is probably opening up a little bit more, maybe not for all games, but for certain games, to using outsourced game engines to help streamline game development. Because part of the thing that probably has slowed Nintendo down a lot is they develop like their own in-house engines for a lot of these games, which is great because they do get some pretty amazing performance out of these systems. I mean, I don't think Tears of the Kingdom could have happened on a off-the-shelf game engine. They had to develop from the ground up. But I do think that they are experimenting more with certain games that they're like, we don't need to build an engine for this. There's some that work just fine for our cause. And that will hopefully streamline some of the game development. So a game like
Mm-hmm.
Pikmin 5 might not take as long because they're already familiar with the Unreal Engine. The Unreal Engine is already probably Unreal Engine 5 will probably be very similar and can work on the Switch 2. So they may be able to quickly develop another Pikmin game. Unity, same thing. It's an off-the-shelf engine. Also, because the Switch 2's architecture is very similar to the Switch 1, some of the engines that they developed for Switch 1, they could probably just basically port over to the Switch 2 and then just soup them up. They basically will do the same thing. I think Prime Remastered, because it's funny thing is Prime Remastered is technically built off the same exact engine they used for Prime 1. Which is crazy to think about. It's literally the same game just with a new shell, but it's the same engine. So I think that I don't know. And again, I'm not a technical person, so I could be just absolutely saying nonsense here. But to me, I think they're going to try and be as efficient as possible with their resources by trying to reuse engines or use off-the-shelf ones to kind of streamline it. So they focus primarily on the game mechanics and the art direction versus worrying about trying to make an engine that runs flawlessly on the hardware. So I'm hopeful anyway. I'm hopeful Nintendo has thought this through. I know they want to keep the pipeline flowing with games. They don't want to be delayed. They don't want to launch just 3 games a year. They want to keep like 6, 7, 8 games going out a year. The Switch 1 was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
They pumped out so many first party games. And so I think that they need that again for Switch 2. And thankfully they should have good third party support, which will help offset it. But again, like the first party games are what sell the system. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
A little bit of evidence to support what you're going with as well is with Pikmin 4. My understanding from people who've like looked into the way that Pikmin 4 was designed, specifically their levels, is it appears that they were made with essentially an in-house level editor that makes it like really, really straightforward and modular to just build more maps. So it may be Nintendo leveraging like knowledge of like, okay, like this is probably going to do well enough for a sequel, so let's future proof it by making essentially, like, we know, like, okay, we want to reuse, like, let's assume that Pikmin 5's happening. They're like, okay, yeah, we're probably going to do Pikmin 5 because Miyamoto demands it. And so let's make this as easy as possible to churn out another one to keep development costs low and development time lower. I could totally see that being the case. And so maybe other games are built like that or will be built like that, or maybe that's a special case. I don't know. But I think there are other strategies that can be employed that totally support your point in other ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just theorizing, obviously, based on what I've read and heard, and I try to put pieces together without actually knowing, like, again, the technicals. But I can see Nintendo trying to be efficient. They don't want to waste time. They want to get the games up, but they're also are willing to take the time to make sure the game's done right. So it's a catch-22, but they but they seem to also be leveraging a lot more studios than they did before, especially with, like, because they seem to be leveraging remakes a lot more now too, to kind of keep the pipeline full. I think the company that made DK Country Returns, apparently they don't have a good track record, but apparently this game they did pretty good. So, like, they're leveraging even studios that may not have the best track record. They just need to get games out, whether the games from Wii or GameCube or whatever. They're finding ways to remaster, remake, whatever. And I think we'll see a lot more of that. I think we're entering that stage of Nintendo where they're looking a little bit more back at stuff. They're pulling out of the nostalgia, and they know nostalgia sells. Otherwise, they wouldn't be keeping the NSO, old games around. People keep playing those things. It's a great way to also test which franchises they should make games for, because they just look at what games are being played on NSO. So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll
Absolutely.
see.
So everyone needs to go play Golden Sun.
Right. Seriously, dude. Oh my gosh, can't even imagine if they had made a Golden Sun for Switch 2. I that I don't know. It would be a different game at that point. It'd be like
It
an
would.
Elder Scrolls style game. It'd just be like, or like a
Don't get me excited.
It'd be like a Soul style Golden Sun.
Oh, Golden Souls.
Golden Souls. Oh man, dude, I'm looking forward to that. I love that we can just sit here and theorize. It's kind of fun at the beginning of the system. We don't know what's going to happen. We're kind of just waiting with bated breath, and it's a good time. It's fun to see where things are going. I think it's time to wrap it up. Definitely, this is definitely one of our longer recording sessions. So, Ryan, it's been fun as always. It's been fun theorizing. I think you had some good ideas, and I hope a lot of them come true.
Yeah, I hope a lot of them come true too, because I think they're pretty good. They should hire us.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got to send on my resume. Definitely a Pikmin 5, dude. If Pikmin 5 came out this year, I'd lose my mind. I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, there's no shot, but it would make my year.
I'll put it on my bingo card, but like in a weird spot where it's not likely to get anyway. So, alrighty. Well, thanks again for everyone listening. If you're listening on one of our platforms, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and eventually we'll be on something else. But for now, that's our start. We're just here to have fun. This has been the Super Dandori Bros. I'm Leighton. He's Ryan. And thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next time. Bye.
Yep. Bye.